Happy New Year and welcome back to another episode of Pursuing the Perfect Pint podcast. I don't know about you, Brent, but it's been a rather chilly start to the new year here in the UK.
Yeah, same here. Switzerland, we've got some snow on the ground, which doesn't happen so often. But yeah, it's chilly. But the calendar has turned over, so 2026 is here. Hope you had a good, relaxing holiday and lots of stuff to do this year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And for people who just joining in who haven't heard it before, we have a pretty good format that we're going to go through, which is really, Brent, to hear your thoughts on what's happening in the global market and what people have to look forward to or not to look forward to, depending on their perspective into 2026. And to hear from one of our sponsors from the RMI conference in Lisbon in March, and one of our speakers, and then an interesting story from the malt supply chain. But first, before we get into any of those aspects, Brent, I think at the end of last year, you were saying you were concerned prices looked like they were turning. And what did that mean for 2026? But you didn't expect to see much happening until we got into the new year a bit more?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty quiet period of time, Danielle. Leading up to the Christmas break and over the holidays. So the one point was really around. We saw prices kind of moving kind of sharply towards the end of the year. French prices were down rather sharply. So, but it's always this question: is it because the market really is needing that kind of drop, or was it a little bit in a vacuum where people weren't really active and it was a little bit of
Yeah.
anomalies? I think it's very important as we look ahead to this week's journal. We are going to be thinking about the price action that we see now in the coming days and weeks, now that everyone's coming back from the holidays, and we'll get a real indication here early in January as to just what the direction of the market's going to be from a barley perspective. The other big thing this week in the journal is I'm going to release the first barley production number from RMI's perspective for 2026. It will be lower, so we're going to see a fairly significant drop in barley production. Some of it's, just a bit of a cyclical change, but some of it is reflective of the pricing that farmers are seeing. So the net result is we will produce quite a bit less barley in this crop 26. It's not a big deal. Demand is still
Yeah.
dismal, so we aren't really in danger of anything. It's we've got more than enough barley, quality barley from crop 25. So it is probably a natural supply and demand adjustment. So we're doing that. So that's the barley story. The other thing I put in this week's journal is I guess I'm campaigning that we should avoid dry January. I think it's an extreme response. If you overindulge over the holidays, there's other things you can do as opposed to avoid alcohol completely. I've come up with we should have a Maltlicious Month, which means you can give up wine, you can give up clear spirits, but there's really no need to give up beer and whiskey, being malt centric.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got non-alcohol beers, which as you know very well, Danielle,
Yeah.
have improved massively over the past few years. So there's some really quality products, even for those that are in the dry January space. But I'm carrying the flag forward that we should really don't avoid malt-based products for the month of January. That's my big
All
bugaboo.
people should do their duty. I think, if non-alcoholic beers have, I don't know, roughly half the malt inclusion, just drink twice as much of
Yeah.
the non-alcoholic beer. And then,
Well, I know this is also a bit of a South African thing, which you know very well, but if you went for a nice walk, you could burn off enough calories to enjoy beer, so go do that. If if you're worried about maybe cutting back a little bit after your overindulgence of the holidays, go for two walks and have one beer. Then you still find a little bit of an offset for paying for the holiday season. But the bottom line is,
yeah.
don't give up on the beer. We're not giving up the pursuit of the perfect pint in January. I can attest to that. It's business as usual.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where does it all plateau out with the decline in production, decline in demand, and do we see that tapering and what that end point looks like?
Yeah,
Or Will we see a switch around?
Yeah, no, well, we hope so, right? And
Yep.
I'm optimistic by nature, so I've been calling for a rebound for so long, and
Yep.
eventually I'll be right. That's one thing at some stage. But my biggest concern, we talk about 2026. My biggest concern is it's very hard to think about getting a real rebound in malt demand from beer and whiskey in the first quarter of the year.
Yes.
January, February, March in winter is not a good beer consumption period of time.
Yep.
Therefore, don't let dry January make that an even bigger problem.
Yep.
That's kind of at the core of my thinking is so yeah, as I said, give up wine, give up cocktails with clear spirits, but have a non-alcoholic beer or go for a walk and have a beer.
Cool. Great.
I guess the bottom line is we've still got a pretty steep hill to climb, Danielle, on recovery. So I guess that's driving much of my thinking around
Yeah, and
dry
hopefully
January.
that'll be a good topic of conversation at the RMI conference in Lisbon as well during all the networking events. And I think onto that, I think one of our sponsor highlights is Morton from Copenhagen Merchants.
Yeah,
What's your summary from that?
we've had a good long-term relationship with Morton specifically and Copenhagen Merchants. So we took a few minutes over the holidays to capture a few of his thoughts. So we'll hear directly from Morton and let you hear in his words what he likes about the RMI conference.
Brilliant.
Okay, well, we're going to take a few moments and connect here with Morton Hoole from Copenhagen Merchants. So first of all, Morton, thanks for taking a few moments to share some of your thoughts with us.
Thanks for having me.
So we're very pleased to have the sponsorship continue. And I guess the first question I had in my mind, Morton, was from your point of view, what is it about the RMI conference that you see as valuable and why you continue with the partnership as you have been?
Well, I think one of the main advantages are that you're able to bring to the same building the whole supply chain. I mean, it's everyone from variety breeders to the final consumers, or at least distillers, brewers. So I think the whole supply chain is there, which is unique in my view when it comes to malting barley.
It's we marketed a lot as the malt supply chain under one roof, which is part of that. So, are there any aspects of the event that you think are particularly valuable?
Well, I think you're able to attract the right people. I mean, all the decision makers are there, going from, again, as mentioned before, people developing the varieties, people trading the barley, but also producing malt. So everyone is there, and I think also the themes that you're bringing up are very interesting and relevant for most of us in the business.
And it's a quite challenging time, so I guess it's probably as important as ever to get together and meet and discuss and shape up where we're going to be in the decade ahead. I guess that's kind of our thoughts. What are your thinking?
I agree. Right now is difficult times for many, and I think the whole supply chain needs to be as efficient as we can. And I think good and open dialogue is helping us doing that.
Yeah, very good. Well, certainly looking forward to it, and thanks again for being a sponsor, and looking forward to seeing you in Lisbon.
Yeah, looking forward to see you.
I think Morton's clearly an advocate for the conference. Brent, do you have any idea how many times he's actually been?
Off the top of my head, I would guess he's easily 4 or 5 RMI conferences in his pocket already. So and he shared, as many others have said, the convenience of the
Yes.
conference is just such a big positive for people. So we've learned a bit along the way to facilitate that by shaping the agenda, which we'll share a bit coming up on the next podcast, and the way we facilitate meeting rooms and so on. So we have kind of got a pretty good recipe, I would say.
Yeah, sounds great. And then for our speaker profile for the RMI conference, I think farmers play such an integral role into the supply chain, Brent, and I know you in particular are always keen to have as many farmers involved so we could have a much broader perspective at the conference. And I think Frank did such a great job at the conference in America that it was time to get him back to share those thoughts.
Yeah, well, a couple of things, Danielle. The view of the farmer is kind of always at the front of my mind, because
Yeah.
and stealing from the U.S. guys, they say no barley, no beer, which I fully align with. So, and we did have the Denver Summit, and that was really good. We had a panel of farmers, and it was a very, very powerful discussion just around the emotion and the commitment these farmers have to growing malting barley, not just for this year or last year or next year, but you're talking generational
Yep.
commitments to this. So very, very powerful message. So yeah, Frank's agreed to come and talk and tell some of that story to the audience in Lisbon, and we will have one farmer that we'll share later from Europe. So we're going to keep that farmer view kind of front of mind. That's for sure. So I guess with that we can hear what Frank has to say in a few words about kind of what he sees as the key messaging for his presentation in Lisbon. Okay, well, next up, we're going to explore a little bit of the barley-focused part of the agenda in Lisbon. So we've got Frank Laufer from North Dakota, I guess North Dakota Barley Council. So first of all, Frank, thanks for joining and being part of the Lisbon conference. Looking forward to having you there.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thanks for having me. I am Frank Laufer. I farm in Southwest North Dakota. I am actually down for the Barley Improvement Conference down in San Diego right now. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, very good. Well, this is kind of a continuation of what we talked about in Denver when we had the nice panel discussion, which you were part of, and I have, hope you don't mind, I've stolen the no barley, no beer, and we've actually used that to label a couple sessions on Thursday morning in Lisbon, and you'll be part of it. So I think, as we've talked about different times, barley's essential to producing beer. So I guess it's a very important thing to have on the agenda, and I think the discussion, you would probably agree, was much needed in Denver, and much more to talk about. So I think a lot of it's an extension of that. But you could give your 2 cents worth.
Absolutely. Barley is something that can be educated, yet there's so much information that's already out there, but people just don't have it refreshed to them. So a lot of things is like the no barley, no beer thing for the National Barley Growers Association's motto. It's just a good idea, and it keeps it thick right in your mind up front. So when you can think about it, hey, that's where it comes from. They're not gonna lie, there is a few people that brew beer that don't even know that malt is barley. So you have to think about that too for newbies or what have you. There's so many perspectives that you don't think about till it hits you in the face.
Yeah, we often have said in the past, some people think that milk comes from the store, which is also a bit of naivety that comes. So we do need to tell that story a lot better. And I know you and all the barley grower groups in the U.S. And elsewhere are aware of that. It's just a difficult thing to do, but we keep forcing along that journey, and we'll continue. So I guess with that, Frank, you've got a good framework of a presentation. We won't share that too much today because we want people to hear it in full in Lisbon. But I guess thanks again for being part of Lisbon, and look forward to seeing you very soon in 3 months in Portugal.
Oh, I can't wait actually. I had such a great time at the last one and I ain't gonna miss it. So awesome.
Very good. Well, we'll see you there.
Okay.
I think it's fascinating, Brent, and I think seeing how AB InBev are starting to add US certified barley onto their brands also means from a farmer's point of view, you know exactly where your product is going, and consumers know exactly what they're buying.
Yeah, I think anything that's done in that space, linking that barley effort to particular brands is really what we need to do. We need to tell that story. You've heard from, I've said it often, and I will probably say it more in the future. Of course, there's a really great story there, and that's part of what we'll do from RMI's perspective to help share those stories, and anything like that we can connect with consumers, I think is brilliant.
Absolutely. And so you've been doing more podcasts and chatting to people to hear their malt supply chain stories. So what one do we have to look forward to this week?
Yeah, well, we when we were in Australia, we had an opportunity to capture a few pieces of content, and one of the legends when I talk about the Australian supply chain and on the variety development side is David Moody at Intergrain.
Absolutely.
So we had a really great chat with him in a really great venue I guess I won't spoil too much of it, but yeah, really great to catch up as always with David, and he's got a wealth of experience. So I think everyone should learn something. I learn something every time I talk to David, so I think it was a good opportunity for us to capture him when we were face to face. With that, I guess let's hear what David Moody has to say. Pursuit of the Perfect Pint continues. We're in Fremantle at the moment, but we've had a very interesting week. We've been out exploring the whole supply chain from barley, new variety development, which is going to be the topic for today. And we went through a malting plant and ultimately to a brewery, which we'll fill in a little bit more. But today we have David Moody here from Intergrain, a legend when it comes to new barley variety development in Australia. So we've had a really great few days out exploring what's going on. But maybe first of all, David, maybe a quick introduction of what you do and your background for everyone.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Look, I started off on a farm, so that's my background. I love agriculture; it's in my blood. But then I got into plant breeding, and I guess you can go in two ways in plant breeding. You can produce food, or you can produce something that creates enjoyment for people. And I chose the latter path, and I have so much enjoyed the journey I've had in plant breeding.
Yeah, and yeah, beer is quite social and quite fun, and I guess you get some reward from the fact that you're helping develop varieties that are obviously beneficial to the farmer. That's obviously very important, but the end use of that is also the fun part. So we'll cover that a little bit because we're in the pursuit of the perfect pint here at Gage Roads. But maybe to back up the point around how do you approach the breeding process from adding value to the farmer?
The way I look at it is you never have a successful product unless it satisfies everyone in the supply chain. You can't do something just for the farmers or just for the end user. You have to do something for everyone, and then you have successful varieties. So that's what I try and do. I try and connect with farmers. I try and connect with processors and the brewing end users and create something that creates value for all of their industries.
And we're sitting in WA, and we've gone out and explored some of the barley. In one way, we're starting from a very good base because we're dealing with a very, very good barley region in the world. Farmers actually very much like barley as part of their crop rotation, and you've delivered, not you personally, of course, but as Intergrain more broadly, you've had some good success in the last few years in what I call the pipeline of varieties. Maybe a little bit that doesn't happen by accident. So maybe you could tell a little bit around how do these varieties come to life and how do you continuously improve that from that farmer perspective is one aspect.
Yep. I guess the key there is, again, connections with industry and really understanding what industry wants. And then you go about trying to create a product that satisfies all the sections of the industry. And for those that don't understand plant breeding, we start with hundreds of thousands of individual lines, and out of those hundreds of thousands, we identify the one or two that become commercial. And it's all about having your selection priorities right and understanding what makes a good variety, what you can do for the benefit of the grower, for the end user. And it is a rare combination of genes that creates a benefit for everyone in the supply sector, in the supply chain. So I think that's what I do. I really try and connect the grower with the end user through a commodity, a product that delivers for everyone.
With a maltster in between. So, of course, we have now the farmer growing barley, a brewer that's brewing and facing consumers, and in between, maltsters are converting barley to malt, and that's an important step, of course, in the process. So you actually have multiple stakeholders that you have to interact with, and I guess you spend a lot of your time engaging across that supply chain.
Yeah, and it's really important, Brett, that the maltsters are the link person. They take an incredibly variable product that varies from season to season, and they've got to transform it into something that a brewer can use with consistency, reliability. So I have enormous respect for the job that the maltsters do. We try and create something that is easy for them to work with. So it minimises the effort that they have to go to produce something that the brewers like. But if you look at what we have to do in that pipeline at the end stage, we have to go through extensive quality evaluation. We have to check that the malt quality that is being produced doesn't have any desirable off flavours, is consistent. So there's very much a rigorous process in selecting for those few lines that finish up being commercially successful.
And just yesterday, we went out to the trial farm, and it was a little bit like a walk through history because we saw varieties from different parts of the world, some of them 20 years old, like Harrington from Canada and many others. And it's kind of good to put it in context. You see the journey we've been on, and the journey's never over. It's a bit like the pursuit of the perfect pint. We actually never maybe reach the final stage, but it's a continuous journey. So you always keep that in the back of your mind, I would think, where we come from, and that helps paint the future. Is that a fair description?
Look, I think that I am inspired by the journey that we've gone from, and what we looked at yesterday, we saw you could see visually the changes we've made in barley varieties from what was grown 20 or 30 years ago to what we've got now. They're so much more productive. They're so much more climate resilient. They deliver to the end user. We've ticked a lot of boxes on that journey, and we're producing a great product that makes a lot of people happy. We're talking a world beer production of 150 million tonnes plus of a product that people enjoy to sit down and relax with their friends and enjoy.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll go to two other topics, and they're a bit complicated in some ways, but I guess the first one would be climate change. That's increasingly a factor to deal with. How have you had to change your whole plant breeding approach to incorporate climate change as just another variable to try to manage?
Yeah, look, I think the good news story is we are adapting as an industry to climate change. It's not the end of the world. We can adapt. And the key to that adaptation has been working with growers and working out how you can increase barley production when temperatures are rising. And farmers are incredibly adaptable, innovative sort of people. And all we have to do is provide them with the traits, and they will adapt and adopt and use them to adapt to climate change. And the growth in barley yields over the last 20 years has been nothing short of sensational. And I put all of that credit to the growers and just a very small amount of credit to the breeders for delivering to the growers the traits they needed to make that change.
Yeah. And we saw that for those, if you would have joined us for our summit this week, David showed the yield gain on barley varieties is very good, as you said. It's actually outpaced wheat, which I think is a very good thing if you're selfishly thinking about the world of barley and malt and malting barley. So I think the one thing we talked about, you got to keep doing that. So there's no pressure, but we just need another decade of that. I guess we talked about it, and I guess if we had a bit of a request from the brewing side of things is, generally speaking, we said the farmers are quite open to trying new varieties, and in some cases they're actually ready to move quite quickly. But the brewing industry in general is quite traditional. So we do start to see where the pinch point becomes getting new varieties approved. They might be very good for the farmer, and agronomically they're good. But I guess, would you agree that maybe trying to get a little quicker in adoption of new varieties could only help move us further ahead faster?
Yeah. And look, a lot of that's about communication, and you can't leave someone blindsided and suddenly present something on their doorstep that they didn't see coming. So you have to work with the end users, maltsters and brewers, and say, this is what's coming 5 years out, 3 years out, 1 year out. Give them plenty of notice, plenty of lead time, and they'll respect you for that. What they don't like, and what no one likes, is surprises. So if they know something's coming, then they will start working towards looking at how they integrate it into their businesses.
Yeah, very good. The other topic I touched upon is, I guess, sustainability, carbon reduction, and these things.
Yep.
Plant breeding has a role to play in that. Of course, maybe reduced fertilizer use would be one example where we could drive a big change in the carbon footprint. But you have to put effort into that and plan for that, because you're going to need a different functionality out of some of the varieties coming forward. So are you ready for that, or how are you getting ready for that next phase?
Yeah, look, that's probably a really challenging one in the carbon space. I think there are genetic tools that we can manipulate to reduce the carbon footprint of barley production. But a lot of it is about actually looking at where we've got to at the moment. A lot of the farming systems changes that we had over the last 20 or 30 years have really enhanced sustainability of grain production, and no-till farming is the classic, and a lot of what we've done in breeding is develop varieties that actually can be grown in no-till farming situations where you do reduce that carbon output from agricultural production. And we shouldn't forget the fact that we've actually come a long way in agriculture. Agriculture in Australia is a very sustainable industry because of the changes that have occurred over the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. And some of the farmers we met with this week would say this is nothing new. They've been performing sustainably and with an idea towards climate change for decades, even, because we've had in Australia, you've had water issues around water availability and droughts and these sort of things. So some would argue in a nice way that they're already doing these things. So it's not like someone's bringing a new challenge to them. They've been dealing with it. So that's maybe a good place to be coming from, because the Australian farmer has been dealing with it for a long time. So let's hope that comes together with new varieties and we find something that's really a good fit for, I would say, for 2035 and beyond, which is kind of our scope of thought, I would say.
Yeah, look, Brent, if you were working in an industry where you didn't see adaptation, innovation, it would be depressing. That's not the case with the industry that I work with. So I'm very optimistic about 2035 and what we can deliver, because I know what has been delivered in the last 20 or 30 years. So it's a great place to be. We don't tell the story enough. We are doing a great job towards creating a very sustainable agricultural system, reducing our emissions and doing everything we can to present something to consumers that consumers should be happy about consuming.
Yeah. And that storytelling around malt is why we do the podcast, and we'll continue to do that. It's a small role we can play. I guess the final question would be around pursuing the perfect pint. In your mind, if you were going to enjoy a beer and a perfect pint, in your view, what would that look like for David Moody?
For me, it would be something that is a wonderful mouthfeel, is smooth, full of malty characters. I love beers like that, where the beer really, the malt really expresses itself in the beer. So that is my perfect pint.
Very good. Well, to that, I think maybe we'll do a cheers to the perfect pint.
Cheers.
David, thanks for your time. Great to catch up this week. All the best.
Thank
Cheers.
you, Fred. Yep.
I think it's just exciting to see that there's still so much new coming out of the barley variety and development world. We keep talking about all these incremental gains, but yet here they are producing great stuff. I think hats off to the whole breeding community in Australia.
Yeah, and David's a great example, but there's others as well that are doing it. I would say Australia's a great example. The pipeline of varieties, the existing commercialized varieties, and the ones that are at introduction phase are all further improvements. So I think if you look at different regions of the world, I'd say Australia, because of the effort of all these people, David and others, has really put Australia in a good position. We see their barley production at a record level this year.
Yeah.
So they can take some credit for that, and in a way that they've really got a variety pipeline. I always use that term. The pipeline of varieties for today and going forward looks really, really well established for Australia. So that's a testament to all the work that they've done.
And then last but not least, Brent, the predictive model. I think there's been quite a lot of interest in seeing this in play. And I think you've seen such good alignment between the predictive model and what we've actually seen in prices. So I think you're extending your free trial offer to people.
Yeah, we've been just working to try to get it in the hands of more people. So we've went out to our journal subscribers, and for those that haven't seen it or aren't seeing it on a regular basis, that they could trial it. So anyone from our subscriber base that's interested, or if you're not getting or haven't seen that, people could reach out to us. But that's something else. There isn't really any place where you can get a forward view to barley and malting barley in particular. So that was the reason we developed in the first place, was to create a view of what future prices could look like. So we extend out for 18 months. So today's model will go out into the middle of 2027. So anyone that's interested in seeing that perspective, we're sharing it with the people to gain their feedback mainly.
Sounds great. And last but not least, don't forget to register for the conference, and see you next week as we celebrate more stories in the malt supply chain and keep looking for the perfect pint. And if you're observant and you're actually watching this on a screen, you'll notice that Brent's wall is getting more and more beers on it. So by the end of next year, you'll be sitting with a mountain of beers behind him.
I've added at least 3 new bottles to the assortment. So as I said, I'm not doing dry January. I'm pursuing the perfect pint with rigor. So
perfect.
Anyways, I guess to everyone, looking forward to 2026. Keep pursuing the perfect pint, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, cheers. See you next week. Cheers, Brent.
Cheers.